Let's put together the tray and the spreader set with the beads that we made this past week. I'm going to start with the spreader. This is from Karen Thomas Designs. There's the bead that was made. 2-part epoxy, some foil and a toothpick to spread it on, and some Scotch tape. Starting with the spreader, you take the ball off the threaded end, and I don't actually use this, so I toss it. And I'm going to simply fill the hole of the bead with the glue and put it in place. So I've got the aluminum foil to spread my epoxy out on. Got to give the epoxy a minute to come down to make it come out. And I'm going to put a small amount, equal parts of both the epoxy resin and the hardener. Mix it for 10 seconds or so with the toothpick. Then I'm taking just a little bit at a time on the end of my toothpick and sliding it down to the very end of the hole. I'm going to fill it up. Not completely fill up the hole because that's just too much and it'll just ooze out. But I'm putting in enough that it will surround the little rod that's going to be going inside. A little bit at a time, making sure it's on the end of the hole as well as the surface of the bead end. Give it just a little bit on the end so it'll attach itself to the blank. And when you push the bead onto the little rod on the blank, it has a pocket of air stuck up inside. So I've just got to try to work it out, move it around, wiggle it, just try to work it out. You'll get a little air bubble that comes out, and then it should sit in there nice. There we go. Make sure there's not too much glue that came out. If there is, you need to clean it up now. I'm taking a toothpick and getting rid of some of the excess, making sure that the part of the bead that I want to have show when the spreader is laying down, make sure that's in the right place. And then I take a little piece of Scotch tape and tape the bead and the blank together so that they don't shift while they are setting up. And that is basically it. Here is the long rectangular tray from Karen Thomas Designs. 2 handles. You saw me make one of the handles in the last video that I posted. I made the second handle the next day when I had the first handle sitting beside me while I was working. So 2 handles, the epoxy, toothpick, foil. That's all you need to put this together. Taking off the ball on one of the ends. One of them is fixed and the other one will screw off. Just taking it out. I'm just checking to make sure that that one is fixed, and it is. Taking the correct handle, making sure I have the right one for the right side. They are 2 different sizes, just slightly. And if they happen to not fit when you are just fitting them to start with, you need to grind off the end. I just used a bead reamer to flatten the end a little bit, to take off a little bit of the width of the bead, the length of the bead, so that it actually fit with the blank. Using the two-part epoxy, you need a little bit more for these two beads than you did for the handle on the spreader. Not a massive amount, but you do need a little bit more. And mix it for about 10 seconds until it's properly mixed. And then you just feed it down into the hole. A little bit at a time. Don't make a mess of the ends of the bead. Be as clean as you can be. Fit it down into the middle. Do the other side. Don't put too much. It just comes right out the other end when you're pushing that little rod handle holder through. Now you got to very carefully slide it down the rod. And one thing that I didn't do was check to make sure that the rod was straight and goes nicely through the bead. And while I'm taping this, I run into the problem. It won't go through. The rod is just a little bit curved, so I need to straighten it out before I can go any further. Checking it, seeing for sure, yeah, it doesn't go through. Taking a pair of pliers and straightening it out a little bit. See if I can get it straight enough to go through without any issues. And that will work. It pushed out a little bit of glue on the other side, so I'm wiping that off. Let's try this again. Putting the handle so that it's lined up with the holes in the tray. I can slide the little bar right through. And as it's going through, it's picking up some epoxy on the threaded end, so I don't have to add any extra epoxy to the bead that's going to go back on the end. So I'm screwing the little ball back on, and you can tighten it up if you can. Tighten it up so that it doesn't turn. And I'm trying to figure out what part I want to have facing up, what part of the design be the best to look. And I let it just set up so the epoxy will hold the whole thing completely into place. I'm going to do the other side exactly the same, obviously. Checking to make sure that it's straight this time before I put the epoxy on it. Checking through the bead, looks good. And we're just going to go ahead and fast forward through this part because you don't need to see it happen twice. Tightening everything up, making sure that the bead is sitting where I want it to be so that it's presenting the best look of the design. And there you go. And that is our set.